In a small village near the coast of Brazil, there lived a young girl named Sofia. She was born into a family that had nothing. Her father worked in the sugarcane fields from sunrise to sunset. Her mother cleaned houses for rich families in the nearby town. They lived in a tiny house made of wood and tin sheets. When it rained, water would leak through the roof, and Sofia would place buckets around the room to catch the drops. Sofia was different from other children in the village. While they played in the streets and chased each other through the dusty roads, she would sit alone near the old community center. There was a broken window on the side of the building, and through that window, she could hear music. The community center had a small dance studio where local teachers taught traditional Brazilian dance to children whose parents could afford the fees every evening. Sofia would press her ear against the cracked wall and listen. She heard the drums beating. She heard the instructor counting steps. She heard the shuffle of feet against the wooden floor. And in her mind she danced. She danced without moving her feet. She danced without anyone watching. She danced in a world that existed only inside her imagination. Her mother noticed this habit and felt sad. She knew Sofia loved dance more than anything else in the world. But they could not afford even one lesson. The fees for 1 month of dance class were more than what her mother earned in 2 weeks. So she did what any loving mother would do. She stayed silent and hoped that Sofia would find another dream to chase, but Sofia could not let go of dance. At night, when everyone slept, she would sneak out of the house and go to the beach. The sand was her stage. The moon was her spotlight. The waves provided her music. And there, under the stars, she would move her body in ways she had never been taught. She did not know the names of the steps. She did not know the rules of rhythm. She only knew that when she moved, something magical happened inside her heart. One night, an old woman saw her dancing on the beach. This woman was named Donna Maria. She was once a famous dancer in the city, but age and a leg injury had forced her to retire. She had moved to this small village to live her final years in peace. But when she saw Sofia dancing under the moonlight, something stirred inside her. She saw raw talent. She saw passion that could not be taught. She saw a gift that was being wasted. Donna Maria approached Sofia the next morning. She found the girl sitting outside her small house, drawing patterns in the dirt with a stick. The old woman sat down beside her and said nothing for a long time. Finally, she spoke. She asked Sofia if she wanted to learn how to dance properly. Sofia's eyes grew wide. She thought it was a joke. No one had ever offered her anything for free. But Donna Maria was serious. From that day forward, Sofia went to Donna Maria's small cottage every afternoon. The old woman could no longer dance because of her injured leg, but she could teach. She had years of knowledge stored inside her mind. She knew every step, every rhythm, every technique that made Brazilian dance so beautiful. And she passed all of this knowledge to Sofia, but there was a problem. Sofia learned differently than other students. When Donna Maria taught her a step, Sofia would nod and practice it. But then she would add something of her own. She would twist her body in unexpected ways. She would pause when she should move. She would speed up when she should slow down. At first, Donna Maria was frustrated. She told Sofia to follow the beat exactly. She told her to stop adding her own movements. She told her that dance had rules and those rules must be followed. Sofia tried to obey. She really did. But something inside her refused to be controlled. When the music played, her body moved on its own. It was like she was connected to a different rhythm that only she could hear. No matter how hard she tried to follow the traditional beat, her body would rebel and create something new. Donna Maria was about to give up. She thought maybe Sofia was unteachable. Maybe the girl had passion but no discipline. But then one evening, something happened that changed everything. A music teacher from the city came to visit Donna Maria. His name was Professor Carlos, and he was an expert in African and Brazilian rhythms. He had studied music for 40 years. He had traveled to dozens of countries. He had trained hundreds of dancers and musicians. Professor Carlos sat in Donna Maria's small living room while Sofia practiced in the corner. At first, he paid no attention to the girl. He was busy talking about old times with his friend. But then his ears caught something strange. He stopped talking mid-sentence. His eyes turned towards Sophia. He watched her move with an intensity that made Donna Maria uncomfortable. After Sophia finished her practice, Professor Carlos asked her to dance again. He wanted to watch more carefully this time. Sophia was nervous. She had never performed for anyone except Donna Maria, but she took a deep breath and began to move. She did not try to follow the traditional beat. She let her body do what it wanted to do. When she finished, Professor Carlos was silent for a long time. Then he turned to Donna Maria with an expression of disbelief on his face. He said something that neither of them expected to hear. He said that Sophia was not making mistakes. He said that Sophia was dancing to a rhythm that did not exist in their music. She was hearing beats between the beats. She was moving to spaces in the rhythm that normal ears could not detect. Professor Carlos explained that in African music traditions, there was a concept called polyrhythm. It meant multiple rhythms playing at the same time. Most people could only hear and follow one rhythm, but very rare individuals could hear all the rhythms at once. They could move to layers of sound that others could not perceive. These individuals were considered blessed. They were called rhythm seers. Sophia did not understand what this meant. She was just a poor girl from a small village. She had never been to school. She could barely read and write. How could she have a gift that even trained musicians could not develop? But Professor Carlos was certain. He had studied rhythm his entire life, and he had never seen anyone move the way Sophia moved. She was not following the beat wrong. She was following a beat that others could not hear. That night, Sophia walked home under the same stars that had watched her dance on the beach. But everything felt different now. She was not just a girl who loved to dance. She was someone special. She had a gift that could not be explained. And for the first time in her young life, she dared to dream that maybe, just maybe, her life could be more than sugarcane fields and leaking roofs, but she also knew that a gift meant nothing without opportunity. And in her small village, opportunities were as rare as rain in the dry season. She needed a miracle to take her from this dusty road to the stages of the world. What she did not know was that her miracle was already on its way. It was coming in the form of a letter, a competition, and a chance that would test everything she believed about herself. 3 weeks after Professor Carlos visited the village, a letter arrived at Donna Maria's cottage. The old woman's hands trembled as she read the words. Professor Carlos had written to the National Dance Academy in Rio de Janeiro. He had told them about a girl in a small coastal village who possessed an extraordinary ability. He had described her movements, her natural sense of polyrhythm, and her raw, untrained talent. The academy had responded with an invitation. They were holding auditions for their youth program. Students from all over Brazil would come to compete for 12 spots. These 12 students would receive free training for 3 years. They would learn from the best teachers in the country. They would have a chance to perform on national stages. And Sophia had been invited to audition. Donna Maria rushed to Sophia's house with the letter. She found the girl helping her mother wash clothes in a large metal basin. When Sophia read the letter, she did not react the way Donna Maria expected. Instead of joy, there was fear in her eyes. She shook her head and handed the letter back. She said she could not go. She said she was not good enough. She said they would laugh at her and send her home in shame. Her mother overheard this conversation. She stopped washing and looked at her daughter with tears forming in her eyes. She had never told Sophia, but she had once dreamed of being a singer. When she was young, she had a beautiful voice. People in her village would gather just to hear her sing, but poverty had stolen that dream from her. She had to work instead of practice. She had to survive instead of create. And slowly, her voice faded and her dream died. She walked to Sophia and held her face in her wet, rough hands. She told her daughter that fear was a liar. Fear would always tell you that you were not enough. Fear would always try to keep you small and safe and stuck. But safety was just another word for a slow death. If Sophia had a chance to fly, she must take it, even if her wings were not perfect, even if the sky looked too big, Even if falling seemed certain, Sophia listened to her mother's words. She saw the pain in her mother's eyes. She understood that her mother was not just talking about dance. She was talking about all the dreams that die in silence, all the talents that rot in poverty, all the songs that are never sung because fear is louder than hope. That night, Sophia made a decision. She would go to Rio de Janeiro. She would face the judges. She would show them what she had learned from Donna Maria and what she had discovered inside herself. If they rejected her, at least she would know that she tried. She would not become her mother, haunted by the ghost of an unlived dream. The next few weeks were intense. Donna Maria trained Sophia every day. They worked on technique and timing. They polished the rough edges of Sophia's movements. But Donna Maria also told Sophia not to lose what made her special. She said the academy teachers might not understand Sophia's gift at first. They might tell her she was doing things wrong. They might try to fix what was not broken. Sophia needed to trust herself. She needed to remember that rules were made by people, and some people had small imaginations. When the day of departure came, the whole village gathered to say goodbye. People who had never spoken to Sophia before now hugged her and wished her luck. Children who had once ignored her now looked at her with admiration. Sophia realized that her journey was not just about herself. The whole village was sending its hope with her. If she succeeded, it would mean that even the poorest child from the smallest place could reach for the stars. Her father took her to the bus station. He was a quiet man who rarely showed emotion, but that morning he pressed a small coin into Sophia's hand. It was old and worn and worth almost nothing, but he told her it was his lucky charm. He had carried it since he was a boy. He believed it had protected him through hard times. Now he wanted Sophia to have its protection. The bus ride to Rio de Janeiro took 18 hours. Sophia had never been more than 10 miles from her village. Now she was crossing entire states, watching the landscape change from coastal plains to mountains to endless city sprawl. When the bus finally arrived in Rio, Sophia stepped out and felt like she had landed on another planet. The city was enormous. Buildings reached toward the sky like giants made of glass and steel. Cars and buses filled the streets with noise and movement. People walked fast, talked fast, lived fast. Everything was speed and light and overwhelming sensation. Sophia felt so small, so out of place, so utterly lost. She found her way to the academy using a map that Professor Carlos had sent with the invitation letter. The building was beautiful, with white walls and large windows and statues of famous dancers in the courtyard. Sophia stood outside for a long time, afraid to enter. Girls and boys her age walked past her, chatting confidently, carrying expensive bags, wearing clothes that looked brand new. She looked down at her own outfit. Her dress was clean but faded. Her shoes were old and slightly too big because they had belonged to her cousin first. A woman noticed her standing at the gate. She was tall and elegant, with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her name was Madame Lucia, and she was the director of the youth program. She asked Sophia if she was lost. Sophia showed her the invitation letter. Madame Lucia studied the letter, then studied Sophia. Her expression was impossible to read. Finally, she nodded and led Sophia inside. The audition would take place the next morning. 143 students would compete for 12 spots. Each student would perform for 3 minutes in front of 5 judges. The judges would score based on technique, rhythm, expression, and potential. Sophia would be student number 117. She would dance in the afternoon session. That night, Sophia stayed in a small room at the academy dormitory. She shared it with 3 other girls from different parts of Brazil. They were friendly but nervous. Everyone talked about their training, their teachers, their years of experience. One girl had been dancing since she was 4. Another had won 3 regional competitions. A third had trained in Argentina and came back with certificates and medals. Sophia said nothing about herself. She did not mention Donna Maria or the beach or the broken window at the community center. She felt ashamed of her story. Compared to these girls, she was nothing. She was a wild plant trying to compete with carefully grown flowers. Sleep did not come easy. Sophia lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the city outside. Doubt crept into her mind like a cold fog. Maybe her mother was wrong? Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe she should take the first bus home in the morning and forget this foolish adventure. But then she remembered the coin her father had given her. She held it in her hand and closed her eyes. She thought about her village. She thought about Donna Maria's sacrifice. She thought about Professor Carlos believing in her. She thought about her mother's unlived dream. She was not just dancing for herself. She was carrying all their hopes on her small shoulders. When morning came, Sophia got dressed and went to the audition hall with the other girls. The room was large and filled with mirrors and wooden floors that shone like honey. One by one, students took the stage and performed. Some were excellent. Some were average. Some froze with nervousness and forgot their choreography. Sophia watched and waited. Her turn was coming. Her heart beat faster with each passing minute. And then, finally, they called her number. She walked to the center of the stage. The music began, and everything she had feared and hoped and worked for came down to the next 3 minutes. The music filled the audition hall, and Sophia stood frozen for 2 long seconds. Every eye in the room was on her. The 5 judges sat behind a long table, their faces blank and professional. The other students watched from the side benches, some with curiosity, others with barely hidden scorn. They had seen her simple clothes. They had noticed her nervousness. They expected her to fail. Sophia took a breath. She thought of the moonlit beach where she had danced alone for years. She imagined the sand beneath her feet, the salt wind in her hair, the stars watching without judgment. And then something inside her shifted. Her body began to move. She did not start the way other students had started. There was no dramatic pose, no confident smile at the judges. Instead, she moved slowly, almost hesitantly, as if she was listening for something that no one else could hear. Her arms rose like they were being lifted by invisible strings. Her feet slid across the floor in patterns that seemed random at first. One of the judges frowned. He leaned toward the woman next to him and whispered something. The woman nodded and made a note on her paper. Sophia could not see what they wrote, but she could feel their confusion. She was not following the traditional structure. She was not hitting the expected beats. She was dancing to her own internal music. Then the drums in the song intensified. The rhythm became faster, more complex. Most dancers would speed up to match. But Sophia did something unexpected. She slowed down. While the music raced forward, she moved as if through water, stretching each gesture, finding spaces between the beats that no one else seemed to notice. A student in the back laughed quietly. Another shook her head. But one judge, a woman with gray hair and deep eyes, leaned forward in her chair. Her name was Professor Helena, and she had been a dancer for 40 years before becoming a judge. She had seen thousands of auditions. She had watched talented performers and hopeless dreamers. She thought she knew every style, every technique, every way a body could interpret music. But what Sophia was doing, she had never seen before. Sophia continued without knowing the effect she was creating. She spun once, then dropped to the floor in a controlled fall that looked almost dangerous. She rose again using only her core strength, her legs extending in a line so clean it seemed drawn by an artist. Her face showed no effort, only deep concentration, as if she was solving a puzzle that existed only in her mind. When the music reached its climax, Sophia unleashed everything she had held back. She moved with explosive speed, hitting every major beat while also dancing to invisible counter-rhythms. Her body became a conversation between different tempos. She was not just following the music. She was answering it, arguing with it, collaborating with it. The 3 minutes ended. Sophia stopped in the center of the stage, breathing hard, her eyes still closed. For a moment there was complete silence. Then she opened her eyes and looked at the judges. Their expressions varied. 2 looked confused. 1 looked impressed. 1 looked annoyed. And Professor Helena looked like she had just witnessed something that would take days to understand. Sophia walked off the stage without knowing what had just happened. She found a corner of the room and sat down, her legs shaking from the effort. Other students avoided her. They had seen her performance and did not know what to make of it. Was she brilliant or crazy? Had she just given the best audition of the day or the worst? The rest of the afternoon passed slowly. More students performed. Some were very good. A tall boy from São Paulo danced with perfect technique and received clear approval from the judges. A girl from Bahia performed a traditional samba that made everyone clap. By the end of the day, Sophia felt certain she had failed. Her style was too different. She did not belong in this world of rules and traditions. That evening, the students gathered in the courtyard to wait for the results. They would announce the 12 names at sunset. Sophia stood apart from the groups, watching the sky change colors. She had already made peace with rejection. She would go home tomorrow. She would tell her village that she tried. She would thank Donna Maria for teaching her. And she would find a way to live with the disappointment. Names began to be called. The first was the boy from São Paulo. The second was the girl from Bahia. Then came students from Minas Gerais, from Amazonas, from Rio Grande do Sul. Each name was met with cheers and tears. 11 names were called. Only one spot remained. Sophia turned away. She did not want to hear the final name. She did not want to watch another student celebrate while she stood alone in the shadows. She started walking toward the dormitory, ready to pack her small bag and begin the long journey home. Then she heard someone calling her name. She stopped. She must have imagined it. But the calling came again, louder this time. She turned and saw Madame Lucia standing at the center of the courtyard looking directly at her. The silver-haired director repeated the name clearly. Sophia had been selected. She was the 12th student. What followed was a blur of emotions. Other students stared at her with disbelief. Some congratulated her with forced smiles. Others openly questioned how she had been chosen. Sophia herself did not understand. She walked to Madame Lucia and asked if there had been a mistake. The director looked at her with the same unreadable expression from the day before. She said there was no mistake. She said Sophia had received the highest score from one judge and the lowest score from another. The panel had debated for over an hour. In the end, Professor Helena had argued so passionately for Sophia that the others had agreed to take a risk. That night, Sophia called her parents using the public phone at the academy. Her mother cried so hard she could not speak. Her father said only 2 words before hanging up because the call was too expensive. He said he was proud. Those 2 words meant more to Sophia than all the medals and certificates in the world. The next 3 years would be the hardest of her life. She was now officially a student at the National Dance Academy. She would train with the best teachers in Brazil. She would learn techniques that took others a decade to master. She would push her body and mind to limits she never knew existed. But she was also entering a world that did not fully accept her. The other students came from wealthy families. They had private tutors growing up. They wore expensive clothes and spoke with educated accents. Sophia came from a tin roof house and spoke with the rough words of the countryside. She did not know how to act in fancy situations. She did not understand the social games that rich people played. She was a fish trying to survive in a forest. Professor Helena became her mentor. The older woman saw potential in Sophia that others dismissed. She spent extra hours teaching Sophia not just dance but also how to navigate this new world. She explained that talent was only half the battle. Sophia also needed to learn how to present herself, how to deal with jealousy, how to stay true to her gift while adapting to expectations. Most importantly, Professor Helena helped Sophia understand her own ability. She brought books about polyrhythm and cross-cultural music traditions. She showed Sophia recordings of African drummers and Caribbean dancers who moved in similar ways. Sophia learned that her gift was rare but not unique. Throughout history, certain individuals had been born with the ability to perceive multiple rhythms simultaneously. These people often became important figures in their musical communities. Some became legendary performers. Others became teachers who could bridge different traditions. Sophia absorbed this knowledge like dry earth absorbs rain. For the first time in her life, She had words to describe what she felt inside. She was not broken or different or wrong. She was simply listening to a more complex music than others could hear. And now she needed to find a way to show the world what that music sounded like. The first year at the academy tested Sophia in ways she had never imagined. Every morning began at 6 with stretching and warm-ups. Then came hours of technique classes where teachers corrected every angle of every joint. Afternoons were filled with theory lessons about music history, rhythm patterns, and dance traditions from around the world. Evenings required students to practice on their own, often until midnight. Sophia struggled with the formal training. The teachers demanded precision and repetition. They wanted every student to perform movements exactly the same way. There was no room for personal interpretation. There was no space for Sophia's natural instinct to add her own rhythm. When she tried to dance the way she felt, instructors would stop the music and make her start over. One teacher in particular made Sophia's life difficult. His name was Master Ricardo, and he was famous for training champions. He believed that discipline was the foundation of all art. He believed that students must first master the rules before they could break them. And he believed that Sophia was undisciplined, disrespectful, and undeserving of her spot at the academy. Master Ricardo criticized Sophia publicly in every class. He called her movements sloppy. He said her timing was always off. He told other students not to learn from her example. Week after week, he chipped away at her confidence. Sophia began to doubt herself again. Maybe she really was making mistakes. Maybe her gift was actually a flaw that she had been too ignorant to recognize. Her classmates sensed her weakness. Some of them had resented her selection from the beginning. They whispered about how she did not belong. They excluded her from social gatherings. They spread rumors that she had only been accepted because Professor Helena felt sorry for her. The isolation was painful. Sophia spent many nights crying alone in her small dormitory bed, wondering if she should quit and go home. Professor Helena noticed the change in her student. She saw the light fading from Sophia's eyes. She watched the girl's movements become smaller, more cautious, less alive. One evening, she called Sophia to her private studio for a conversation. The older woman sat Sophia down and asked a simple question. She asked what Sophia loved about dance, not what she was supposed to love. Not what the academy valued, but what truly made Sophia's heart catch fire when she moved. Sophia thought for a long time before answering. She said she loved the feeling of disappearing into the music. She loved when her body stopped being her body and became an instrument of sound. She loved finding rhythms that others could not hear and making them visible through movement. Professor Helena nodded slowly. She told Sophia that what she had just described was the soul of dance. Technique could be taught to anyone. Precision could be trained into any body. But the soul was born, not made. And Sophia's soul was extraordinary. Then Professor Helena said something that changed everything. She told Sophia that Master Ricardo was not wrong. The rules of traditional dance existed for good reasons. They created a shared language that allowed dancers to communicate. But the rules were meant to be a foundation, not a cage. Sophia needed to master the rules first. She needed to prove that she could dance like everyone else. Only then would she earn the right to dance like no one else. This advice shifted Sophia's approach completely. She stopped fighting against the formal training. She stopped feeling offended when teachers corrected her. Instead, she became the most dedicated student in the academy. She practiced basic movements thousands of times until they became automatic. She memorized every rhythm pattern, every traditional step, every historical style. She gave the teachers exactly what they wanted during class hours. But late at night, when the other students slept, Sophia would sneak into an empty practice room. There, in the darkness, she would dance her own way. She would let her body find the hidden beats. She would experiment with combining traditional forms and her natural style. She kept these sessions secret, like a treasure that only she knew about. Months passed. Master Ricardo began to notice changes in Sophia. Her technique improved dramatically. Her movements became cleaner, sharper, more professional. He still criticized her, but his words carried less venom. Other students also noticed. Sofia was no longer the easy target she had been. She was becoming serious competition. At the end of the first year, the academy held its annual showcase. Each student would perform a solo piece in front of an audience that included parents, sponsors, and talent scouts from dance companies around the country. This showcase could launch careers or end them. Students prepared for months in advance. Sofia chose to perform a traditional maracatu piece. This was a strategic decision. Maracatu was one of the most respected forms of Brazilian dance. It had strict rules and well-known rhythms. By choosing this style, Sofia would show the world that she had mastered the academy's training. She would prove that she was not just a wild talent who could not follow directions. She practiced the piece until every step was perfect. She worked with Professor Helena to understand the history and meaning behind each movement. She consulted with Master Ricardo himself, asking for feedback and corrections. The old teacher was surprised by her humility. For the first time, he gave her genuine advice instead of harsh criticism. The night of the showcase arrived. The auditorium was filled with important people in elegant clothes. Students waited backstage, nervousness thick in the air. Sofia watched her classmates perform one by one. Some were excellent. Others made small mistakes under pressure. Everyone gave their best effort. When Sofia's turn came, she walked onto the stage calmly. The music began, and she executed the maracatu piece exactly as she had practiced. Every beat was hit perfectly. Every gesture was historically accurate. The audience nodded with approval. They saw a talented student who had clearly benefited from elite training, but then something happened that no one expected. The planned music ended. The audience began to applaud, thinking the performance was finished. But Sofia did not bow. She stood still, eyes closed, as if waiting for something. A new rhythm began to play through the speakers. This was not part of the program. Professor Helena had arranged a surprise. The new music was complex, layered with multiple drums playing different beats simultaneously. It was the kind of music that would confuse most dancers. Sofia opened her eyes, and for the first time on a public stage, she revealed her true gift. She began to move in ways that no one in the audience had ever seen. Her body responded to every layer of the rhythm at once. She was not choosing one beat to follow. She was dancing to all of them, weaving between frequencies like light through a prism. The audience fell silent. Some people leaned forward in their seats. Others whispered to each other, trying to understand what they were witnessing. A talent scout from a famous dance company dropped her program and forgot to pick it up. Master Ricardo, watching from the wings, felt his chest tighten with an emotion he could not name when the music finally stopped. Sofia stood breathless in the center of the stage. The silence stretched for what felt like hours. Then someone in the back started clapping. Others joined. The applause grew until it filled the entire auditorium. People stood from their seats. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Sofia had proven herself. She had shown that she could follow the rules and also break them in ways that no one else could imagine. She had demonstrated that her gift was not a rejection of tradition, but an expansion of it. And in doing so, she had planted the first seed of a legacy that would eventually change how the world understood rhythm and movement. But the greatest challenges of her journey were still ahead. Fame would bring opportunities and also dangers. Not everyone would welcome a poor girl from a coastal village rising to prominence. And Sofia would soon learn that the world of professional dance had darker corners than she had ever suspected. The showcase performance changed everything for Sofia. News of her unique ability spread through the dance community like fire through dry grass. Critics wrote about her in newspapers. Dance magazines requested interviews. Companies that had never recruited from the youth program suddenly expressed interest in this strange girl, who could hear what others could not, but with attention came complications. A wealthy businessman approached Sofia with an offer. His name was Alberto Montero, and he owned a chain of entertainment venues across Brazil. He wanted to sponsor Sofia, pay for all her training and expenses, and eventually feature her in shows at his clubs. The money he offered was more than Sophia's parents earned in 10 years. Sophia was tempted. She could send money home immediately. She could buy her parents a real house with a proper roof. She could repay Donna Maria for all those free lessons. The offer seemed like a dream made real. Professor Helena warned her to be careful. She had seen other talented students accept similar offers only to become trapped in contracts that exploited them. Sponsors like Alberto were businessmen first and art lovers second. They cared about profit, not about an artist's growth or integrity. Once Sophia signed a contract, she would dance what he wanted, when he wanted, however he wanted. Sophia asked for time to think. Alberto gave her 1 week. During those 7 days, Sophia could not sleep properly. She walked through the city streets at night, trying to imagine different futures. In one future, she took the money and helped her family escape poverty. In another future, she refused and continued struggling at the academy. Uncertain if she would ever achieve success on her own terms, she called her mother to ask for advice. Her mother listened quietly, then said something unexpected. She told Sophia that poverty was not the worst thing that could happen to a person. Losing your soul was worse. She said that Sophia should trust her instincts. If something felt wrong, it probably was wrong. At the end of the week, Sophia met with Alberto to give her answer. She sat in his expensive office, surrounded by photographs of celebrities who had performed at his venues. He offered her coffee, which she declined. Then she told him no. She thanked him for his interest, but said she wanted to build her career on her own path. Alberto's friendly expression disappeared. He became cold and businesslike. He told Sophia she was making a mistake. He said that without a sponsor, she would remain unknown, dancing in small studios until her youth faded. He warned that he had significant influence in the entertainment industry. Doors that could open for her would now stay closed. Sophia left his office feeling scared but also strangely free. She had made a choice based on her values, not her needs. Whatever happened next, she would face it with a clean conscience. The following months were difficult. Sophia noticed that some opportunities that should have come her way were blocked. When companies scouted at the academy, they somehow always overlooked her. When competitions were held, her application forms mysteriously got lost. Alberto was keeping his promise to make her path hard, but Sophia refused to give up. She worked even harder on her craft. She began creating her own choreography, combining traditional Brazilian forms with her polyrhythmic abilities. She performed for free at community centers, at schools, at hospitals. She danced for anyone who would watch, building her reputation one audience at a time. Word of her grassroots performances reached international ears. A documentary filmmaker from France was traveling through Brazil, making a film about underground art movements. She heard about a young dancer who performed for free in poor neighborhoods, whose movements were unlike anything in traditional dance. The filmmaker, whose name was Marie, decided to investigate. When Marie saw Sophia dance for the first time, she understood immediately that she had found something special. She asked Sophia for an interview, which turned into a week of filming. Marie followed Sophia through her daily life, capturing her early morning practices, her struggles with the academy, her volunteer performances in favelas. The footage was raw and honest. The documentary premiered at a film festival in Paris 1 year later. It won an award for Best Cultural Feature. Suddenly, Sophia's story was being discussed in European art circles. Critics called her a revolutionary talent. They compared her to legendary dancers who had transformed their art forms. The film was translated into 12 languages and shown in theaters around the world. Sophia received invitations to perform internationally. A contemporary dance company in Barcelona wanted her to join their troupe. A music festival in New York offered her a headline spot. A choreographer in Tokyo asked to collaborate on a new piece. For the first time, Sophia's talent had real options beyond Brazil, but she faced a dilemma. She still had 1 year left at the academy. Leaving early would mean abandoning her formal training, and some people would always view her as incomplete, as someone who never finished what she started. Staying would mean missing these opportunities, which might never come again. Professor Helena advised her to go. She said Sophia had already learned everything the academy could teach her. The rest of her education would happen on stages around the world, learning from different cultures and audiences. The diploma was just a piece of paper. Real credentials came from the work itself. Sophia made her decision. She withdrew from the academy with 1 year remaining. She said goodbye to the friends she had made and the teachers who had shaped her. Even Master Ricardo, who had once been her harshest critic, shook her hand and wished her well. He admitted that he had misjudged her. He said she was the most unusual talent he had encountered in 30 years of teaching. Her first international destination was Barcelona. The contemporary dance company there had been experimenting with African and Latin American influences. They believed Sophia could help them discover new directions. When she arrived in Spain, she felt both excited and overwhelmed. She did not speak Spanish. She did not know anyone. She was far from everything familiar. The first rehearsals were challenging. The company's style was very different from what Sophia had learned. They emphasized abstract expression over traditional forms. They cared less about rhythm and more about emotional communication. Sophia had to adapt her approach while staying true to her core gift. Some company members welcomed her warmly. They were genuinely curious about her abilities and wanted to learn from her. Others resented her presence. They had worked for years to earn their spots, and now this unknown girl from Brazil was receiving special attention. Jealousy created tension that sometimes boiled over into arguments. The company's director, a Spanish woman named Carmen, recognized the conflict and took action. She created a new piece specifically for Sophia, a solo that would debut at the Barcelona International Dance Festival. This piece would showcase Sophia's unique abilities without threatening the other dancers' positions. It was a wise solution that gave everyone room to coexist. Sophia threw herself into preparing for the festival. She worked with Spanish musicians to create original compositions that would challenge her polyrhythmic skills. She collaborated with lighting designers to create visual effects that would amplify her movements. She consulted with historians to incorporate elements of both Brazilian and Spanish dance traditions. The Barcelona Festival was attended by critics, buyers, and artists from across Europe. Sophia's solo was scheduled for the final night, the climax of the week-long event. As that night approached, Sophia felt pressure unlike anything she had experienced before. This performance would define how Europe perceived her. It would determine whether her international career had legs or was just a brief curiosity. On the night of the performance, something went wrong. 2 hours before Sophia was supposed to take the stage, she received devastating news from Brazil. Her father had suffered a heart attack. He was in a hospital in the nearest city to her village, fighting for his life. Sophia faced an impossible choice. If she performed, she might never see her father alive again. If she left immediately, she would abandon her biggest career opportunity and disappoint everyone who had supported her. Time seemed to freeze as she stood backstage, tears streaming down her face, her phone clutched in her trembling hand. Carmen found Sophia backstage, shaking and unable to speak clearly. When she understood what had happened, the director immediately took charge. She told Sophia that the only choice that mattered was the choice of love. Career opportunities would come again. Fathers did not. Carmen arranged for a car to take Sophia to the airport. She found the fastest flight to Brazil. She told Sophia not to worry about anything except reaching her family. Sophia arrived in Brazil 18 hours later, exhausted and terrified. She took a bus from the major airport to the regional hospital where her father lay. The journey felt endless. She watched the landscape pass by the window without really seeing it. Her mind was filled with memories of her father. She remembered him pressing the lucky coin into her hand. She remembered his 2 proud words on the phone when she was accepted to the academy. She remembered all the silent ways he had loved her, never with flowery words but always with steady presence. When she finally reached the hospital, she found her mother sitting alone in a waiting room. The older woman looked like she had aged 10 years in 2 days. Her eyes were red from crying. Her hands would not stop moving, twisting and untwisting a piece of cloth. Sophia's father was alive, but barely. The heart attack had been severe. Doctors said the next 48 hours were critical. If he survived that period, he might recover. If not, his heart could fail again at any moment. Sophia spent the next 2 days sleeping on the floor beside her father's bed. She held his hand and talked to him even though he could not respond. She told him about Barcelona, about the dance company, about all the beautiful things she had seen in Spain. She did not tell him that she had missed her biggest performance to be here. She did not want him to feel guilty. On the third morning, her father opened his eyes. His voice was weak, but his mind was clear. He looked at his daughter and asked why she was not in Europe dancing. Sophia started crying. She could not lie to him. She told him everything. She told him about the festival, about the solo, about Carmen driving her to the airport. Her father was quiet for a long time. Then he reached up with his frail hand and touched Sophia's face. He told her that she had made the right choice. He said that dance was important, but family was sacred. The ancestors would bless her for honoring her blood. He said these words with such conviction that Sophia believed them completely. Over the following weeks, Sophia's father slowly recovered. The doctors were amazed by his progress. They said his will to live was remarkably strong. Sophia suspected that she was part of that will. Her presence gave him something to fight for. When he was well enough to leave the hospital, Sophia brought him back to the village. She expected to find their old house with the leaking roof. Instead, she found something different. The entire village had come together while she was away. They had fixed the roof, painted the walls, and added a small garden in the front. It was still a simple house, but it was no longer falling apart. The villagers explained that they had seen the documentary about Sophia. They had watched their girl on a movie screen, dancing for audiences in faraway cities. They were so proud that they wanted to do something to show their support. Since they had no money to send, they gave what they had, their time and their labor. Sophia was overwhelmed by this gesture. She had spent years feeling like an outsider, even in her own village. She had thought that her difference made her less connected to her community. But now she understood that the opposite was true. Her gift had become a source of pride for everyone who knew her. Her success belonged to the entire village. She stayed in Brazil for 3 months, helping her parents adjust to her father's new health limitations. During this time, she did not think about her international career. She focused entirely on family. She cooked meals, cleaned the house, and spent long evenings talking with her parents about everything and nothing. But the world did not forget about Sophia. The Barcelona performance that never happened became legendary in its own way. News spread about the dancer who abandoned the festival spotlight to be with her dying father. Some people criticized her for being unprofessional. Many more admired her for prioritizing family over fame. The story humanized her in ways that a perfect performance never could. Messages and offers continued to arrive. The documentary had been shown at more festivals, winning additional awards. Dance companies from 5 different countries expressed interest in working with her. A major music artist wanted her to appear in a music video. A television network proposed a reality show about her journey. The attention was constant and sometimes overwhelming. When Sophia finally returned to international performing, she did so on her own terms. She accepted invitations selectively, choosing projects that aligned with her artistic vision. She avoided sponsors who wanted to control her. She maintained her connection to Brazil, returning home several times a year. She brought her parents to see her perform whenever their health allowed. Her career grew steadily rather than explosively. She became known for depth rather than spectacle. Critics praised her ability to make audiences feel rhythms they had never perceived before. Other dancers studied videos of her performances, trying to understand her technique. Some thought it could be learned. Most eventually admitted that her gift was unique, a combination of natural ability and years of development that could not be replicated. Sophia also began teaching. She remembered how Donna Maria had changed her life with patient instruction. She wanted to give that same gift to others. She held workshops in cities around the world, but she never charged high fees. She wanted her knowledge to reach people who could not afford exclusive training, the way she once could not. During a workshop in New York, she met a young man named Marcus. He was a musician from Jamaica who played drums in a style that combined African, Caribbean, and American influences. When he played, Sophia heard layers of rhythm that reminded her of her own internal music. For the first time, she met someone who seemed to understand what she experienced. They began collaborating. Marcus would create complex percussive compositions specifically for Sophia to dance to. He would layer rhythms upon rhythms, testing the limits of what she could perceive and express. Their partnership produced some of the most innovative performances in contemporary dance history. Critics called their work a new language of movement and sound. Their professional relationship gradually became personal. They married in a small ceremony on the beach where Sophia had first danced under the stars. Both families attended. Donna Maria, now very old but still sharp-minded, served as the officiant. Professor Helena flew from Rio de Janeiro to witness the union. Even Master Ricardo sent a gift and a letter expressing his continued respect. Sophia's life was full in ways she had never imagined possible. She had a husband who understood her gift, a career that fulfilled her artistry, and a family who loved her unconditionally. But she knew that her journey was not complete. There was one more thing she needed to do, one more dream she had carried since childhood that remained unfulfilled. She wanted to return to her village and build something that would last beyond her own lifetime. She wanted to create a place where children like the girl she once was could discover their own gifts without having to press their ears against broken windows or sneak onto moonlit beaches. She wanted to give her community a real dance school, free and open to everyone who had the courage to dream. Building a dance school in a remote coastal village was not simple. There were permits to obtain, materials to purchase, teachers to recruit, and endless bureaucratic obstacles to overcome. Sophia used her savings and her connections to make things happen. Friends from her international career donated money. Former teachers offered to come and teach intensive workshops. Even some of her old classmates from the academy, the same ones who had once whispered about her behind her back, volunteered their time. The construction took 2 years. Sophia was present for as much of it as her performing schedule allowed. She helped carry bricks, paint walls, and install the wooden floor in the main dance studio. She wanted to be part of every stage, to feel the school growing under her own hands. When the building was finally complete, it was modest but beautiful. It had 2 studios with full-length mirrors, a small dormitory for students traveling from distant villages, and a library filled with books and recordings about dance and music from around the world. Sophia named it after the old woman who had changed her life. She called it the Donna Maria Center for Rhythm and Movement. Donna Maria herself was there for the opening ceremony. She was 93 years old, confined to a wheelchair, her dancing days long behind her. But her eyes still sparkled when she heard music, and her hands still moved instinctively to rhythms that played in her memory. When Sophia unveiled the sign with Donna Maria's name, the old woman wept. She said she had never imagined her name would stand on a building. She said this was a greater honor than anything she had achieved in her own career. The school opened its doors to students from the entire region. Children and teenagers from poor families could attend for free. Those with some means paid modest fees that helped cover operating costs. Sophia insisted that no one would ever be turned away for lack of money. She remembered too vividly what it felt like to want something desperately and have poverty stand in the way. In the first year, 42 students enrolled. Some showed natural talent. Others struggled but persisted. A few discovered that dance was not their path and moved on to other pursuits. Sophia watched each one with care and attention. She saw herself in their struggles and their breakthroughs. One student in particular caught her attention. Her name was Aina, and she came from a fishing family in an even smaller village farther up the coast. Like young Sophia, Aina had never received formal training. She had learned to move by watching older women in her village celebrate during festivals. And like young Sophia, Aina danced to rhythms that seemed invisible to others. Sophia recognized the signs immediately. She spent extra time with Aina, working with her privately after regular classes ended. She taught Aina about polyrhythm and helped her understand her own abilities. She told Aina about her journey, about the doubts and the struggles and the moments when giving up seemed easier than continuing. Anna became the school's first star student. Within 3 years, she earned a scholarship to the National Dance Academy in Rio de Janeiro, the same institution where Sofia had trained. The cycle was completing itself. A gift was being passed from generation to generation, from Donna Maria to Sofia to Aina, to whatever students would come next. Sofia's father lived long enough to see his daughter's school become established. He visited often during his final years, sitting in a corner of the studio, watching young people learn to dance. He said very little, but his presence spoke volumes. His daughter had transformed from a poor village girl into an international artist, and she had never forgotten where she came from when he passed away peacefully at the age of 78. Sofia mourned deeply, but without bitterness. She knew that his life had been complete. He had worked hard, loved his family, and lived to see his daughter achieve dreams that he could never have imagined for himself. The lucky coin he had given her on the day she left for Rio was buried with him. Returning to where it belonged, Sofia's mother lived another 10 years after that. She moved into a comfortable house that Sofia built for her near the school. Every morning, she would sit on her porch and watch students arrive for classes. She said hearing the music through the windows made her feel young again. She said her own unlived dream of singing had finally found peace, because her daughter had lived a dream for both of them. As Sofia entered her middle years, her performing career naturally slowed. She accepted fewer international invitations and focused more on teaching and directing. She developed a reputation as a mentor who could spot unusual talent and nurture it with patience and wisdom. Former students scattered across the world, carrying pieces of her teaching with them. Marcus remained her creative partner throughout these years. Their musical collaborations evolved as both of them aged. Where once their work had been explosive and athletic, it gradually became deeper and more contemplative. They explored how rhythm could express not just youthful energy but also the complex emotions of maturity. The experience of loss and love and time passing, the documentary that had first brought Sofia international attention, was eventually updated and expanded. The new version traced her full journey from childhood to the present, including the school and her father's illness and her work with Aina. It was shown in schools and universities around the world as an example of how talent, combined with determination and support, could transcend circumstances. Sofia was invited to speak at conferences about arts education, about poverty and opportunity, about the importance of preserving cultural traditions while allowing them to evolve. She was not a natural public speaker, but her honesty and passion connected with audiences. People felt that they were hearing from someone who had truly lived what she was describing. On her 60th birthday, the village held a celebration at the school. Students past and present gathered to perform pieces they had created in her honor. Aina, now a renowned dancer in her own right, returned from Europe to lead the performances. The evening ended with Sofia herself taking the stage one final time. She danced alone, without accompaniment, in the silence of the studio where so many young people had found their voices. Her body was no longer as flexible as it once was. Her movements were slower, more careful, but the gift remained. As she moved, those watching could almost hear the invisible rhythms she was following, the complex layers of beat and silence that only she could perceive. When she finished, the room was still. Then applause erupted, not the polite applause of formal occasions, but the deep and genuine appreciation of a community honoring one of its own. Sofia looked around at the faces she loved, at the building she had created, at the legacy that would continue long after she was gone. She thought about the night, so many years ago, when she had pressed her ear against a broken window just to hear music. She thought about the moonlit beach where she had danced alone, believing that no one would ever understand her. She thought about all the people who had told her she was doing it wrong, that she should follow the beat like everyone else, that her way of hearing rhythm was a mistake to be corrected. They had been wrong. Her difference was not a flaw, but a gift. Her inability to follow the expected beat had led her to discover beats that no one else could find. And in sharing those discoveries, She had opened doors for countless others who also felt different, who also heard music that the world could not hear. Sophia smiled, tears running down her weathered face. She had followed her own rhythm, and it had led her home. Not just to this village, not just to this school, but to a deep understanding of who she was meant to be. The girl who could not follow the beat had become the woman who taught the world new ways to listen. And that was a story worth telling again and again to anyone with the courage to dance their own dance.